I'm not really a big fan of videos that create lists of things that women find attractive. Not particularly because I think they're usually wrong, although I do a lot of the time, but also because it creates its own problem. A really big problem that lots of people have noticed over the years, but no one really stops and addresses in principle, which is what today's video is going to be mostly about. See, one of the biggest issues with creating or making content like this, content that creates lists and standards or some type of summary as to what attracts women into men or what attracts women to men, kind of neglects the reality of human psychology. And that is, human psychology is not really a science. It's, first and foremost, an offshoot of philosophy, but that's a bit too deep. Human psychology is not a science because we can't really test and repeatedly verify how different stimuli is going to affect a particular human. We can create what I like to call archetypes of humans, general trends and things we can notice that is familiar between multiple different humans based on, say, culture. But as far as taking an individual human and testing them psychologically, you're not really going to get anything consistent. Sometimes ironically from that very same human that you're testing. Not only because human beings can change their minds over time, despite the fact very many people do or like to, but also humans have a developmental cycle where they can feel one way when they're younger, and as they evolve, or as they grow rather, they change. With this understanding, it's really difficult to paint a good, strong, consistent picture on how people operate. And that is what leads us to this video by Courtney Ryan, and why I have a really big problem with it. That's the first problem I kind of have with it, just as a general set piece of lots of content on the internet that exists teaching young men how to court women. Of course, ironically, there's like next to zero videos really teaching women how to court young men, but that should be its own discussion for another time. What's important about this video from Courtney Ryan is I think that a lot of people don't ever seem to notice or recognize this cold, harsh reality of the male experience. And that is, videos like Courtney Ryan's video, telling us the 5 things that women are really attracted to, is exactly what creates nice guys. Or beta male simps, I guess is the new pejorative we like to label at young men that are desperate for female attention. Which, I do need to pause to say, I find it interesting how we simultaneously base males' worth on their ability to obtain female attention, but also besmirch men for wanting the same female attention and validation that they need in order to be confirmed to be a man. Make it make sense. No one can. The point is, or at least the point of this video in particular, is the fact that, well, creating a standard or creating an expectation of what women want is exactly what has created the nice guy phenomenon of the last decade, or last couple of decades rather. And in fact, interestingly enough, the nice guy type of phase is kind of where the vast majority of red pill content creator and dating gurus exist from. Now, you have some of them who were divorced and lost a lot of their stuff to relationships with women as well. But a lot of what breeds the nice guy rage, aggravation, or frustration is the phenomena of expectation. Of course, lots of feminists, lots of young ladies would like to paint as young men are entitled to women. They feel like they deserve something or they're owed something. And that's not entirely accurate. I mean, it's kind of close. I understand what they mean, but it's not accurate. Because the way young males would feel in this particular circumstance is the way anyone, realistically, should feel when they're told that one thing works and it doesn't. In fact, I imagine if you had an oil leak and you used some stop oil leakage fluid in your engine, and after driving 100 miles you still find that you have the same oil leak, you'd be disappointed and frustrated. If you bought a container of Clorox bleach and it didn't clean your countertops off very well, I would imagine you'd be frustrated. If you were told that you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to gain the favor of women, maybe you guys can understand why someone would be frustrated. It's because whenever you create an expectation of something, which expectant would be a much better word to use than entitled, disappointment is bred because your actions don't meet your expectations. So disappointment is the juxtaposition between what you thought would happen and what actually happened, right? If I were to create like an equation for it or a good definition for you guys to understand. The nice guy's disappointment, rage, and frustration all make sense when you consider lots of investment goes into relationships that are not guaranteed to blossom. And rage and frustration certainly is something to be expected from men that did invest years of their lives into a relationship with a woman, only for the woman to get bored or disappointed or angry and leave. To me, this shows a hilarious lack of empathy for men that just permeates throughout society, but that goes beyond the scope of this video. The nice guy's frustration, aggravation, and the fact that he's not able to get the relationship that he wants, or the beta male, or whatever pejorative you want to use against these young men that find themselves upset at the fact that they can't find the women that they want, all stems from the fact that there is some standard always presented to young men to do that doesn't work. For me, or for I imagine a lot of young men, is we were taught that we have to be kind to women, nice, treat them well. For me personally, I was told women like when you write them poems, hold the door open for them, listen to their problems, actually be attentive, care about what they have to say, and then even bring it up and really show your opinion and show that they matter to you. One thing I was certainly told a lot growing up is women love to be, or women want or desire to be loved for who they are, independent of their sexuality, independent of how beautiful they are. And I did that, only to find not very many women liked me. Despite the fact that I was very, very kind, not the best person, but I at least tried to be really good to people, it didn't matter. Despite the fact that I had truly loved women, independent of their beauty, truly loved them for who they were, sometimes women I didn't even find attractive physically in the first place, still didn't matter. Now, it isn't to say that I wasn't able to find any woman to reciprocate affection for me. I was. Circumstance usually prevented me from being able to be in those relationships for a while, but my ex-girlfriend, on the other hand, that was all her. Interestingly enough, the reason why my ex-girlfriend broke up with me was because, in her words, I was a for-lifer. I'll talk about her a little bit more in detail one of these days, but the point is, I did everything right with my ex-girlfriend. Well, I didn't do everything right, but I certainly was a committed individual, and I certainly was a loving individual, and I was more than anything a caring and protective individual, and ironically, it was those very traits and aspects that made her break up with me. Again, I'll have to go into detail about that more some other time, but the fact remains that the expectation was created, I did what was expected of me, and it still didn't work. It isn't to say that this is never going to work, which is the folly, or not even so much the folly, but the reality of human psychology, is that we're mostly working with probabilities. We're mostly working with what might work and what will help improve what can or generally gives you a favorable result, but not necessarily guaranteed. Of course, no dating guru would ever in life present you guys with this cold, harsh reality that a lot of dating and courtship is kind of just fate. Not only fate so much as you just have to be in the vicinity of the woman that you would want to court in reality, but it would just kind of also have to be fate that she's using the same dating app that you're using as well, that she wouldn't be in a relationship. In fact, interestingly enough, sometimes the relationships that you do find, again, is mostly just fate. It just kind of happened because the two people were close to each other, not necessarily because the dude did anything right or wrong. He just was there while the woman was single. There's a lot of that when it comes to courting. There's a lot of that when it comes to relationships. I would say that that's kind of the whole of it, really. Hell, even your friends or the people around you, it's just kind of fate. Things that are way out of your control. And for as much as you can increase the probability that you might be more attractive to women or you can get more women to come to you, most of the things that young men are taught to focus on to get those women are material. And when that's the case, the type of women you're going to get to you are going to be basically prostitutes. Now, of course, Courtney Ryan doesn't operate on that reality, or she doesn't really operate on that thesis. What Courtney Ryan wants you guys to do is to have long-term good relationships with women. And so she labels out 5 different ways that's going to make you more attractive to women that want long-term relationships. Now, of course, this bothers me greatly, because after looking at the 5 traits that Courtney Ryan gives us, I stopped and I thought really critical about this. I thought to myself, if these are the 5 things that women really find attractive, why is it that 50% of marriages break down and fail? And then out of those 50% where the people in it have divorces, why are 80% of them usually initiated by the woman? I mean, if women were fond of the stability that Courtney labels as the first trait that women are attracted to, breaking down your marriage is like the absolute opposite of creating stability. I know, because my parents got a divorce. If women were really so interested in integrity, why do so many of them lament that the men they date are cheaters? If women really were interested in the 5 things that Courtney Ryan says that women are interested in, how is it possible that we even have any single mother in existence? What Courtney is presenting isn't really matching up with the reality of women. The reality of young ladies do not operate the way Courtney Ryan is saying they operate. And we're going to go take a look at some of these traits, and I'm going to explain how this is not matching up with the pool of individual women we're mostly encountering.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today I'm going to be going over 5 things that every woman wants in a man. These are things that women look for if they're looking for a long-term relationship, if they're looking for something healthy, long-term, mature, all of the good things. So let's get started. Number 1 is stability, and I wanted to get this one out of the way, and it should be no surprise to you that this is the first one on the list. I know you're all thinking it, so obviously all women want to feel safe, secure, whether that be financially, emotionally, kind of the whole 9 yards. Number 2, I've got leadership. Being a leader is just something that's incredibly attractive, and not only will this help you in your romantic relationships, but generally I think this will help you in your everyday life as well, whether it be with your friends, with your family, at work. Being able to kind of take the lead in a situation if things get a little bit stressful, or if you have to figure something out on a whim, is always very attractive. Number 3 is emotional intelligence, and I've actually done an entire video about this, so if you haven't checked it out, be sure to do so if you would like kind of the deep dive into it. So I'm just going to touch on it briefly here today. So basically, emotional intelligence is the idea that an ability to understand and manage emotions greatly increases our chances of success, have integrity, and something that I have talked about so much on this channel because I think it's incredibly important. One of the most important things you can do is to be a man of your word. You don't want to be a guy whose actions and words never match. And last on my list, number 5 is purpose.
Now again, all 5 of these traits are probably excellent to have independent in its own right. In fact, you should probably be stable and have leadership skills and have integrity and some driving force or soul to your life, again, independent of trying to be attractive to women. So, number 1, being motivated to obtain all of these qualities because you are a woman in its own right is a bad thing to do. Like I've said this for the last couple of years. You should never do anything with the expected result of trying to get women. But I also find it very hard to believe that these are traits that women are attracted to at all. Not only because, in my experience, the number 1 thing that women are really looking for, especially when they're younger, is an overwhelming and burning desire to feel special. In fact, interestingly enough, I don't see very many red pill activists, I say activists is the wrong word, or red pill content creators or dating gurus, just tell you young men the truth. The truth is, all the fluff of what young ladies are saying they want all comes down to they want to feel special. And what your job is to do to court that woman is to make her feel special. And when she doesn't feel special anymore, she'll decide to leave you. Now, there's a lot of problems that stem from that reality of women, but until that core element is addressed, mainstreamly at least, we're going to be caught with these stupid lists and like milestones and stuff that young men are supposed to obtain in order to be attractive to women. And that's just not the reality of the situation. Again, if women really were looking for stability, how does any one of them date men that cheat on them? How do any one of these women date men that are really poor? How does any one of these women date men that abandon them and their children? Well, the answer is obvious. When you understand that most people are actually looking for relationships to feel validated and not to create families, then the traits that you want to be validated are usually individuals that make you feel special. Attractive individuals will make you feel good sexually, and people that have money will be able to give you things that, well, if you're materialistic, make you feel better about yourself, especially in relation and comparison to other people. Because those are the primary focuses on what young ladies want when they look for relationships with men, those are the type of men they're attracted to. And so on a technicality, that will certainly work if you want a prostitute or a woman with low self-esteem, but is it really something that's going to be functional and make your relationship work and last? The proof is in the pudding, and the answer is no. Now, I'm going to save the conversation on purpose for another video because I have seen this one make the rounds in the dating guru red manosphere sphere for a minute. So we'll save that for its own discussion because I think it's an important discussion in general. Let's just end off on this note here. I want you guys to understand that I'm not making this video to say that like none of the information that you'll glean from dating gurus will work in attracting women, because that's just not true. It will. The type of women, however, it will attract are not going to be individual ladies that want to be mothers to your children. It's not going to attract women that have honor and virtue in themselves, and most women, honestly, are not even selective of these traits that Courtney Ryan put. These are really good traits that you should have. But I think the folly that Courtney Ryan has is she uses the allure of femininity to control men and get them to do what she wants them to do. Which sounds really nefarious, but it is actually kind of the best way to utilize femininity. Like, I mean, again, it does sound nefarious, but Courtney Ryan is kind of using her femininity in the best possible way. And that is taking the desire men have for women and using it to encourage them to be better people. It is the best way to use it, but it's still wrong. And the reason why is because doing the right thing while tainted for the wrong reasons is always going to breed resentment. And it's always going to make people frustrated because people are going to do exactly what you ask them to do, and they're going to find that it's not going to work. Or more accurately, young men are going to do what women ask them to do, and they're going to find that it usually does not pan out well, and it doesn't work. Again, if 50% of marriages are breaking down, are you going to say that 80% of the women found that the husbands they were with weren't stable? Because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a huge chunk that find that they were, and that just really was irrelevant. In fact, most of the reasons why a lot of relationships break down is not because young men fail to have the traits that Courtney Ryan here says, but because women are dissatisfied with the particular results that they have currently with the men. Because again, they're mostly ruled by their materialism. And until that element of modernity in general, not just with young women, but with young men are addressed in these spaces, you really just have people chasing tails. And as long as men are doing everything they can to appeal to women, it's going to be really hard to ever be able to truly express genuine leadership. Because if men truly were the leaders of women, women would be focusing on trying to appeal to men, not men trying to appeal to women. You can talk about dominance as much as you want. You can talk about how being strong and loud and whatever. You can say whatever you want all the live long day. But as long as men are doing what women want to appeal to them, you can't really argue effectively that men are the ones leading their relationships when everything they're doing is mostly contingent upon the whim of the women. And you can say all the live long day that a lot of these men are just going to be rotating these women out. But if these men aren't doing it because they really like being around with women, then they're wasting their time to begin with, number one. Number two, it's not even a worthy endeavor to participate in, because if you don't like these people, then you shouldn't be doing anything to try to appeal to them, even if it gives you temporary pleasure. In fact, if that's what you want, it shows that there's a big hole in your soul more than it kind of shows that there's a problem with anyone else. But I kind of digress. That goes beyond the scope of this video. The point that I'm making is that you cannot set up people with a belief that these things are going to work and they're attractive to women. You can't set people up with anything that this is what you have to do to get this result when it comes to human psychology. Because the truth of the matter is, people are different. And for as much as you can have archetypes, as much as you can have general trends, as much as you can understand generally how people work, until you meet the person personally, you might find that that knowledge information isn't applicable. You have to treat people for who they are and what they're doing currently. And setting people up like this and telling them they have to do this or they should do this to get an expected result is exactly what breeds the nice guys and the beta males and the simps and all of the young men that are desperate for female approval and attention. You have to teach people to do what's right because it's right, and you have to get women to like the fact that men do what's right. And that way, we can get our perpetual relationship motion machine flowing. So with that being said, I assume that you guys got something out of today's video. I certainly doubt that you did, but if you did, go click the like button. Shoot, go and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. As always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.